Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate and a special interview with the new Environment Minister. How does she see her job and how will she face up to the many challenges she has to contend with? That's the key issue I shall explore today with Jayanthi Natrajan. Mrs. Natrajan, congratulations on becoming Environment Minister. It took the media by surprise. Was it a surprise for you as well?
Well, I wouldn't call it a surprise in the sense that oh my God, I'm a minister. But I think I was extremely emotional and a little overwhelmed by the responsibility given to me and by the faith, a little emotional about the faith that the party had reposed in me.
Now, there's a question that you must have asked yourself frequently. You were a minister last time round in 1998. Why do you think it took them 13 years to pick you and make you a minister again?
You know, Karan, I don't think about it in that way at all. I feel, on the one hand, I feel my loyalty to my leader and my party is absolute. And I work very hard as best I can. But on the other, I feel extraordinarily privileged in many ways. Many responsibilities have been given to me. So I never think why I haven't been made a minister before. I think very important responsibilities have been given to me.
But there must have been times when either the government was being constituted or reshuffles happening when you said to yourself, why haven't they found a place for me?
Yes, of course, to be perfectly honest. In 2009, when the government came back with such a spectacular victory, the UPA 2, and I did not find a place in the Council of Ministers, I was disappointed. But at no time was I angry or was I frustrated, because I always felt that my party had given me great opportunities. I was very disappointed and I did wonder why. But I think the answer seemed obvious to me, which is that Tamil Nadu had an overwhelming presence because our coalition partner was from the state. And so I just went on to do my work.
But it must have been difficult to accept it.
No, you accept it in politics. There's always another day.
Now, you've got a ministry where you step into Jairam Ramesh's shoes. He not only left us with a very high profile, he was the minister who was highly acclaimed by NGOs as well as by several sections of civil society. Is it daunting to have to follow after him?
I'm my own person, and I'm very confident of my own capacity to work hard and do my best. It is not daunting. But I want to place on record that I think my predecessor, Jairam, did an absolutely spectacular job in mainstreaming environmental concerns. And certainly, as India's environment minister, it will be, I will strive every nerve, strain every nerve to make sure that environment is a mainstream concern.
Let me put it like this. Jairam Ramesh was both a much loved minister but also a much hated minister, and the problem that he faced was that corporate India saw him as a roadblock on the way to development. Many people believe that they petitioned the Prime Minister to remove him, and that's why you got the job.
No, I don't believe that, I believe these issues are sometimes blown out of context. Let me tell you how I see it. You know, I've only been here 2 days, Karan. I mean, I'm only talking with you because I know that your concern for both the subject and for the political impact is great. But the point, even after 2 days in the ministry, I feel that this is really a mythical and a non-existent dichotomy. There is no dichotomy between development and environment. Both have to go hand in hand. And I believe that sometimes it's blown out of proportion.
You know, that's what you say. But there is a widespread perception that the Prime Minister, in removing Jairam Ramesh, even if in the process he also promoted him, gave in to expediency and compulsion and sacrificed principle and conviction, and you're the result. Does that perception embarrass you?
Not in the least. My actions will show that there can be no compromise on either issue. That I will always act for the best welfare of the country. I will act according to the conscience, of an environment minister and how it should be. And I think it's very unfair to say that the Prime Minister gave in to compulsion.
But there's a widespread perception that he did, that he didn't stand by conviction. He actually came under pressure from corporate India.
I don't think the Prime Minister's compulsion and conviction depend upon one person or one ministry. I think he looks at a much larger canvas.
All right, that I accept. But you said a moment ago that you will do the best by the welfare of India. The problem is that different people interpret the welfare of India very differently. Now, corporate India is hoping that on all the projects where Jairam Ramesh either stalled or slowed down, projects like POSCO, Vedanta, Lavasa, perhaps BT Brinjal, perhaps Jetapur, you will expedite matters, you will free up the process. Is that expectation going to be pressure for you? Because they're looking and they're waiting to see this happen.
Well, here's the way I look at it. I think, as I said, I don't see any essential dichotomy at all. I think that there's no such thing as a roadblock, and that there's no such thing as an adversarial position. So I will look at each issue. It's not a question of corporate India versus the environment, because neither can exist without the other. And I feel that it's all the same. We're all on the same track, and I will look at every issue on the merits of that issue.
No doubt. But the problem is this, that if you don't free up the projects that Jairam Ramesh had slowed down, you will incur, and very quickly incur, the wrath of corporate India. On the other hand, if you do free up those projects and you do expedite the process, you will incur the wrath of the very NGOs and those sections of civil society that supported Jairam Ramesh. You are caught on the horns of a dilemma.
No, but may I question the way you put it? The fact that people see it, your viewers, you, corporate India, anybody, and NGOs, see it as either freeing up or giving up and giving in.
The world sees it that way.
Yeah, well, I would restate that position to say that every issue, you know, it is a fact that the environment is something that is absolutely vital, critical, important. We cannot, you know, there's no way that we can lose out and give up on the environment.
But POSCO, Vedanta, Lavasa are also critical and important.
However, development is equally critical. And therefore, I look at every issue on the merits of it.
No doubt you look at every issue on the merits, but this is the problem. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
No, but
you
then
can't
there's
escape one way or the other from serious criticism from one side or the other.
That doesn't bother me. I would have satisfied my conscience.
It really doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me because I don't see it. You can't lump Lavasa, POSCO, Vedanta and say somebody's against the environment. Somebody's against the corporates. And you can't lump something else and say somebody's against the environment. It's not, it simply doesn't work that way.
Except for the fact that...
An environment minister protects the environment and says, here is an area where you can't locate a plant, here is a kind of coal that you cannot use. It's simply not a question of being against corporate India.
Except for the fact that when you come to those critical subjects that are so much in the public eye, like Lavasa, like POSCO, like Vedanta, like BT Brinjal, like Jetapur, you're going to know that one side or the other is going to descend on you like a ton of bricks with anger because you've taken a decision they don't like. No doubt the other side will support you, but 50% will be against you. Doesn't that worry you that you're caught in the middle of a binary where one way or the other you'll be damned?
You know, politics, governance, politics, all these, I think this is an occupational hazard. What would give me sleepless nights and what would cause me immense anxiety is that I should make that right decision. Is the line I'm drawing the right balance? Am I drawing the balance between development? Am I denying someone a livelihood? Am I stopping 0.5% growth? Or am I saving the environment? That would give me sleepless nights and not what people might say about
So
me.
what you're saying in effect is that if my conscience is clear that I've taken the right decision, I don't mind unpopularity even if it comes from large quarters.
You put it better than I did.
But you're accepting that?
Yes.
The problem once again, and let me take Jairam Ramesh as an example, is that many times in the period that he spent here as minister, he took positions, he took decisions which under force of circumstances or political pressure he was forced to rescind and reverse. Can you give an assurance that when you take a position or you make a decision, you won't similarly vacillate or oscillate or simply compromise?
No, I will certainly make every effort to, I will not take a position unless I'm reasonably sure, both on merits and by my conscience, that it's the best.
And then can you stand by that?
And I will stand by it. However, I will be guided by whatever circumstances that are a part of as a whole.
So there's a let-out clause, certainly. You'll stand by it, but you'll be guided by others.
No, I do not operate in a vacuum. I operate in an environment where I work with colleagues. We need to listen and talk to each other.
True.
That does not mean it's weakness. That does not mean it's giving up. That does not mean it's reversal.
But it does mean that you have to take acknowledgement of a reality where a decision you've taken or a position you've taken may have to be changed, altered or reversed if circumstances so require it. You're open to that.
No, but this is a hypothetical question, of course. But I am very conscious that I don't operate in a vacuum.
Pride won't be a problem.
Pride will not be a problem.
You know, as I hear you talk, and as I analyze the sort of dilemmas, I called it the horn of a dilemma that you were placed between, I get the feeling that the Environment Ministry is a bit of a poisoned chalice. Do you half wish that the Prime Minister had given you another portfolio?
No, I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister because it's an incredibly wide canvas and it's got incredibly important issues. I feel absolutely honored to be able to contribute, and I mean it from my heart. That the wetlands of the nation, the waterways of this country, the biodiversity, the incredible canvas that he's given me to work in.
So the excitement of the challenge is greater than the apprehension of the pitfalls that lie ahead.
And the absolute privilege I feel in being able to contribute to it.
Let's take a break at that point. When we come back, I want to touch on something that you've been hinting at right through part one. What people call the dilemma or the conundrum that lies at the very heart of your ministry, the debate between protecting the environment and ensuring speedy growth. All of that in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an exclusive interview with the new Minister of the Environment, Jayanthi Natrajan. Mr. Natrajan, let's come to a subject that you've hinted at right through part one and what many believe is the essential dilemma or conundrum that lies at the heart of your ministry. The struggle between the need to protect the environment and the need to secure growth. No one would deny that protecting the environment is important. But the problem is that India is crying out for growth. The poor need it more than anyone else, and growth involves costs. America and Britain faced those costs in the 19th and earlier 20th century. China is facing them today. How are you going to respond to that essential duality, that binary opposition between the two?
I don't see any opposition at all. There should not be. And as it is my privilege to be the Environment Minister, I will make a serious effort to convince all my colleagues and you and everybody that there can be no question of sustainable development unless the environment is a cornerstone. This is not a cliche.
That I totally accept. But what about when ministers impose no-go areas for mining where the richest coal seams or the richest iron ore is to be found? What happens where essential projects cannot take place because certain communities regard hills as precious and sacred? Is there a real dilemma between protecting the forest or protecting someone's cultural rights and progress which brings jobs to millions? And at the end of the day, those jobs are necessary. What will you do?
You know, I have actually two things to say. One is not directly related to the question, and I'll come to that later. To directly address what you said, yes, when the question of no-go area or of a go area, I in one day at the minute, not even 2 days, in one day at this ministry, I found that this is something that has been very much hyped. For example, if you say that coal production has fallen because there are no environment clearances, and that may not strictly be true. It may not be because coal production might have fallen. I'm just saying this as an example. I'm not saying it has or it hasn't.
So the press has either misconveyed
No,
a
I'm
message,
not saying the press. I'm
or
saying
the popular impression is wrong.
I'm saying that the popular impression and a perception that, for example, I'm not saying it has actually fallen. If coal production has fallen, people tend to blame the environment, to say there was a no-go area, we couldn't do, everything has fallen, we have no energy. Whereas when you look at it, when I look at my papers, I find that if you give, for example, a coal mine a license to start mining, it takes 3 years to get operationalized. So you cannot possibly attribute it to the fact that there was no permission if there was a fall from one year to another. So my point is that sometimes the Environment Ministry becomes the fall guy for other issues. And if
that no doubt is true, often the Environment Ministry is blamed unnecessarily. But equally importantly, it's often blamed rightly when you have clearances being given in 1 month, suspended in the next month, re-given again 3 months later. That's happened with POSCO, it's happened with Vedanta, and people are left with the impression that there isn't a clear-cut road to progress. It puts off Indian investors, it worries foreign investors, and as a result, growth doesn't happen, jobs don't happen, and people remain grinding in poverty.
Well, I certainly there should be a sort of one window clearance and I think there should be complete clarity.
Will you ensure that?
I absolutely. That
and will you also ensure that once a clearance is given, it's stood by, that it's not changed, revoked, suspended?
That will be my major endeavor. That will. But having said that, that will happen in the future. As far as I am concerned, I will make sure that there will be no confusion and complete clarity. But having said that, in the past, perhaps there was something that came up later that necessitated a change.
Possibly.
So the past is over.
The past is over.
And now I will ensure that the complete clarity on these issues exists.
Let me put it like this. There are major landmark, test mark projects like POSCO and Vedanta, largely because they've attracted so much attention both at home and abroad. Can you ensure speedy resolution one way or another so that the suspension and the uncertainty which puts off investors is removed?
Well, certainly, while I will insist that at all costs the environment should be protected and in all its dimensions, the easy way to do it by making sure there's a speedy decision, that I can facilitate and will.
But there's another concern that corporate India has. They say that they think that India, given the point of its historical development, is paying far too much attention to environment concerns at the cost of growth. They point out that America and Britain, when they were developing in the 18th and 19th centuries, didn't worry so much about the environment. No doubt we live in a different world and we need to pay more attention than they did. But are we overdoing it? Are we overdoing it at the cost of jobs, investment? Because at the end of the day, those jobs are going to lift people out of poverty.
You see, the damage that has been caused to the environment, and this is an issue which I wish people, influential opinion makers like you would pay more attention to, is like climate change. What has already happened is going to swirl around for 150 years. Therefore, that compensation, that problem.
But does it have to be environment before growth?
No. I think that there is no real growth unless the environment is taken into consideration.
So what's the point of having a beautiful environment if the people are living in poverty?
No, Karan. It's not a question of a beautiful environment. I'm talking about destroying a habitat. I'm not talking about picture book issues. I'm talking about if you get low-grade coal and ruin your atmosphere, if you ruin your forest, you're not going to get rain next year. I'm talking about bread and butter environment.
Can I put it like this, because we have only 30 seconds? Can you send a message to corporate India to say that whilst I am determined to protect the environment for the good of everyone, I am determined not to slow down growth. I will not be the cause for India's growth rate or investors being put off.
I can send a message to corporate India that environment was never the reason why there was a slowdown and will not also in the be.
Will you do everything you can to facilitate growth? Because at the end of the day, it's growth that will lift India's poverty and people out of the life.
I will do everything I can to protect the environment and facilitate growth.
Mr. Natrajan, a pleasure speaking to you.
It's my pleasure.